Chapter 7, Law and Order. California was a lawless place during the gold rush years. The earlier gold strikes in Georgia and North Carolina had been more orderly. They both were already states when gold was found, with laws, courts, and police to control crime. California didn't become a state until about 2.5 years after gold was discovered at Sutter's sawmill. Before statehood, mining camps came up with basic rules to keep things fair. A man named James Hutchins published a list of rules in a newspaper. It was called the Miners' 10 Commandments. The list included good advice like don't stake more than one claim at a time, don't steal another's claim, and don't gamble away your gold. In the early days of the gold rush, there wasn't much crime. Most people followed an honor system. A miner could safely leave his gold in his tent. It probably wouldn't get stolen. But as more people came, the camps got crowded. Things changed. It wasn't as easy to find gold. There was more competition. Some miners got worried and greedy. Their families back home were counting on them to strike it rich. So they stopped following the rules. If they got really desperate, they might cheat, steal, or kill for gold. When a fellow miner wasn't around, they'd prospect his claim. This was called claim jumping, like the restaurant Claim Jumper. It was one of the most serious crimes. Not all trouble in the camps was caused by miners. Criminals also came west. In California, no one knew about their past. They'd start committing crimes all over again. The camps got more and more dangerous. At first, most claims had been along the rivers. When those were taken, prospectors moved into the mountains. Now they were far away from the busy camps. There was no one to help if a miner was robbed or attacked. Prospectors took the law into their own hands. They decided among themselves whether someone was guilty of a crime. There was usually no trial. If there was, it was quick and unfair. Rule breakers were treated harshly. The softest punishment was banishment from the camp. Worst punishments included whipping, branding, or cutting off an ear. Worst of all was death by hanging. There were many hangings in Hangtown. That's how the camp got its name. As time went on, the miners who hadn't found much gold got frustrated and angry. They blamed miners who came from other countries. They thought it wasn't fair for foreigners to be allowed to prospect in the United States. Only U.S. citizens should be allowed to hunt for gold, they said. Their protest resulted in the Foreign Miners Tax in 1850. Miners who came from outside the United States now had to pay a lot of money for licenses. In 1848, there were 3 people from China in California. By 1852, there were about 20,000. They called California Gumshan, which meant Gold Mountain. Chinese miners worked hard. They were good at their jobs, but they were treated unfairly. In some places, Chinese were only allowed to mine abandoned claims. These were worthless mines others had given up on. Even so, Chinese workers often still managed to find gold in them. Native American tribes were angry at miners. Who could blame them? The Nisenan, Maidu, Miwok, Yokuts, and Pomo tribes had lived in California's gold country for 1,000 years before gold brought a rush of people west. The tribes didn't like how they and their land were being treated. For instance, newcomers shot buffalo for their hides or just for fun. Prospectors didn't take care of the land. They did whatever they had to reach gold. Sometimes they built dams. This dried up some rivers. Their digging muddied the streams. The sun could no longer reach plants and animals that lived in the water. Fish died. Water became polluted. Natural habitats were being wrecked. Native Americans depended on the land for food and water. Now many went hungry. They raided miners' supply wagons to keep from starving. Angry miners burned their villages, sometimes killing them. But even more, Native Americans died from the new diseases miners had brought west, such as smallpox, cholera, dysentery, and measles. Although California became a state on September 9, 1850, law and order came slowly. Bandits, criminal gangs, and murderers would roam its mining camps, hills, and towns for years to come. There they are burning their teepees and things. And here's a picture of miners posing with their tools, rockers, wheelbarrows, picks, and shovels. There's James Marshall. There's John Sutter. And we are about to get to Chapter 8. Here's a group of miners. Whoops. And John Sutter's letter sharing about the gold rush. And miners relaxing at a saloon or a bar. And then at the bottom there at work. You can see they had Sunday morning relaxing. Then they had scenes of what miners might have done on Sundays, hang around and talk. They show an advertisement of how much it would cost a passage to the gold region for $75. That's 1849 advertisements if people were trying to go to San Francisco. Shows a miner with a pick, some gold, books of what to do. Another advertisement here, if they could get on a boat to get there. It says advertisements for paying for passage to California. So it turns out there are a lot of other resources in the back of this book. Shows you some of their photographs, some of their ads. Shows the Chinese workers there. You guys have this, but this is a hoisting wheel. And then this is a woman, actually. You can see her dressed up. An African-American miner, so some of the minorities. And just some older pictures, what their coins were like, a gold nugget, the miners' 10 commandments that they talked about, the rules that people were supposed to follow. 1850 photograph, old towns. And then we finally get to chapter 8, Boom Towns. Hope you enjoyed it.